to follow that. I can assure you Dickens was a highly political writer. Orwell, absolutely political party writer. However, Dickens was political to the very bone of his body, all the way through. He began, as DJ said, with, as a very kind of lower middle class boy. He descended very much into the actual working classes when he was working as a child labourer, when his father was in debtor's prison. He then ascended up to the upper middle classes. And as for not knowing any aristocrats, absolute rubbish. Dickens knew everybody. Two of his closest friends, Lady Blessington, Count D'Orsay. He used to hang around with prison governors. He would go to workhouses. He would meet prostitutes and try and bring them to a change of life. What Dickens did was to look at what was happening there and now and how he could change it. And he did this through medium of his writing. As Michael mentioned, he had newspapers, household words all the year round, in which he campaigned actively, but he also did it through his novels. And every single novel, Orwell says in his essay on Dickens, there's only one child labourer, David Copperfield. And he obviously didn't read Dickens. You can't pick up a book. And they do work. You've got Charlie, the little laundress, 13 years old, desperately working every day, trying to keep her brother and sister out of the workhouse. You've got Joe, the crossing sweeper, dying every single day. He's sweeping those streets. You've got Lizzie Hexam out with her father, dragging bodies from the river the minute she's allowed to walk. You've got Prince Turveydrop teaching other children to dance from the moment that he's able to dance himself. Fagin's gang, the children in the workhouse. Orwell obviously didn't read Dickens properly if he really believed that the only real child labourer in Dickens was David Copperfield. And what Dickens did with his novels was to make the reader, these people who weren't only the literate. The important thing about Dickens was he wrote serials. He wrote his novels in chapters that were then read out to the illiterate as well as the literate. He knew that these were taken by the one person in the village who could read, be it the schoolmaster, the minister, the doctor, and people would gather around that person's house once a month to hear these novels. Dickens maybe didn't write about Chartists and trade unions because he was those things. What he was saying in his novels were, I'm appealing to you, the people who run these factories. We can't have the change coming from these oppressed, downtrodden workers. We need you to make the change. Nicholas Nickleby, Dickens had been a campaigning journalist. When he went up to Yorkshire, he went to a graveyard and he saw all these gravestones of young boys. He couldn't understand why. He started to look into it. In Nicholas Nickleby, he wrote about this hideous phenomenon of the Yorkshire schools. Everybody said this is rubbish. These terrible places where unwanted children are sent to. They don't exist. But he kept writing about them, and people descended on Yorkshire, journalists from all over the country, discovered they did exist. William Shaw's Academy was what Do the Boys Hall was based on. Within 2 years of Nicholas Nickleby being published, every single one of those Yorkshire schools have been closed down. If that's not great political writing, I don't know what is. Christmas Carol, 1843, Dickens goes to Manchester. He goes to Manchester and he is appalled by the poverty he sees. He thinks he's seen poverty in London. He thinks that when he used to walk to and from his lodgings to the prison, to his factory every day at the age of 12, he saw poverty on the streets of London. He thinks that when he does his nightly walks, he sees it. He saw poverty in Manchester that made him ill. He could not believe that people, particularly children, lived like this. He came back to London and he said, I am going to write a story that strikes a hammer blow in defence of the poor man's child, because no one else was doing it. None of the politicians were doing it, none of the actual party political people. So what did he do? He wrote Christmas Carol in 6 weeks. It has never been out of print since 1843. 6,000 copies, the first print run, sold out in 4 days. And it had a direct impact. What he was saying with Scrooge is, you people who are reading this, you are Scrooge. You're not walking past these people and giving them money, you're not giving them food, you're watching them starve on the street. You know, this is what he was saying to people. 1867, he goes out to America for his speaking tour, gives a talk on Christmas Carol, and a Chicago factory owner who'd come to Boston to watch Dickens heads back to Chicago, closes down his factory for Christmas Day, gives every single one of his workers' families a turkey for Christmas. And he insisted that nobody would work on Christmas Day in his factories again. That, to me, is brilliant political journalism. Am I running out of time? Can I just say one more point? So I'd like to just go back to something that Michael said, which was George Orwell was a brilliant political writer of his time. Dickens was a brilliant political writer that continues to be seen today. Christmas Carol last year encouraged loads of charity, the Disney Christmas Carol film. People started talking about it again, so there's only one option. It's one of Dickens.